Hello and welcome. Thank you for attending this training today, everyone. In this session, we are going to explore how we can use Digimap for schools to help pupils think about what makes a community sustainable and how they can use mapping tools to plan and design community of their own. So let's start. Throughout this training, we will be using Digimap for schools. For those who are new to Digimap for schools, it is a powerful, easy to use tool exploring real places. It lets pupils zoom in on and anywhere in Great Britain, and they can also zoom in worldwide, and they can switch between different map types and use tools to investigate, annotate, and measure. Today I will show you how to use it to explore local areas and to support the students in planning their own sustainable community and opening up a discussion for what sustainability is and what is needed for a community to become sustainable, and all of that using Digimap for schools. A sustainable community is one that meets the needs of everyone now and in the future. It should be environmentally friendly, socially inclusive, and economically resilient. With Digimap for schools, you can look at the map and identify things like green spaces and biodiversity, good public transport and walkability, access to services like schools and shops, types of housing, and also identify affordable, energy efficient homes. From this slide here, you can see what I've just talked about. I can use Digimap for schools to identify all those places, for example, to identify if a place has more green. So I can use the aerial map view as I'm using here, for example, for that purpose. So in your classroom, you can use Digimap in various engaging ways. You can, for example, pair students to collaboratively design communities, run sessions on tablets or PCs, capture screenshots for assessment or display, or even link to a local field trip or compare digital designs to real life developments. Within the topic of sustainability, you can use Digimap for schools to explore a wide range of cross-curricular learning outcomes. For example, in geography, you can use human and physical features like land use, map skills. In science, you can discuss climate, energy use, ecosystems. In math, you can use scales, measuring tools, budgeting for features like housing or solar panels. And in citizenship, you can work on decision making, fairness, inclusion, and in English, persuasive writing, for example, writing a letter to the council. Using Digimap for schools, pupils can zoom into a familiar local area, for example, and like their schools, and identify features like houses, roads, shops, and schools. They can build a key chart of sustainable features, label elements using drawing tools, and measure how far residents need to walk to access services. This turns geography into a living local exploration. And you can ask pupils, what do you notice about this area? What is working well? What could be improved? For younger students, you can ask them to spot 5 features that make a place sustainable. For older students, you can conduct a sustainability audit and rate an area based on categories like transport, housing, and green spaces. These activities, they will help to build the observation and critical thinking in your students. So if you want to see an example of that, so I have here a set of activities I created. This is just some suggested activities that we are creating a whole resource about creating sustainable community. It is almost ready, it's just on the review stage now. And but if anyone wants to have a go at looking at it and trying to use with your students and doing a review, just send me an email and I will send that to you. That is the activity you have there. You can use these activities and try it with your students. You can, of course, modify and use your own ideas. This is just an idea of something that might help to start your students to look at the key in Digimap for schools and work to create their own activities. So if I look at the Digimap for schools, for example, and the key is right here, I open the key and I can look at towns and cities and look at what elements I can see. So as I zoom in, it changes because it is going to show me more details. So let's look at the city of York. It's quite a historic city and full of contrast in so many ways because many of the buildings, they are old, but they are also listed buildings which would make it a little more resistant for creating something that is sustainable and new. Here the keys you can use. So I have here those blue symbols. The blue symbols are usually the most visible ones. So I have a nature reserve here, museums, churches, and so on. And I can look at all of them. So the blue ones usually are the tourist information. So when I open them, I can see all those symbols that I can see on my map as well and discuss them with with my students and discuss what is here that would be a symbol of sustainability or not. And I can also use here the land access and use all the images I can see here. The key tool in Digimap for School is quite rich in the sense that you can use for seeing what is in the map and discussing that with your students. And there is so much to it. There are different buildings and structures. You can like a glass house, for example, and an important building. You can see the wind turbines, so you can actually discuss it. Is this city producing its own electricity? Is the city depending on elsewhere to produce their electricity and so on? So back to the presentation. Let's go here. And so you can encourage pupils to research these locations using Digimap for schools, ask them to identify sustainable features and areas needing improvement. So this exercise will help them to understand real-world application in sustainable planning and design, for example. So it is also important for that students see sustainable communities in action. So great examples include the BedZ in London, the UK's first large-scale eco-village, Freiburg in Germany, renowned for green urban planning, and Scotland's own Sustainable Communities Initiative in Craigmillar. So these examples, they demonstrate that sustainability is achievable and inspiring, and that they are things that are real, and your students can see in reality how they work. So I have some of them here for you to take a look. So BedZ, you can look at it, and they have a video talking about zero carbon community and how it works. And you can download the PDF. The PDF will have an interesting map associated to it. The links are in the slides and you can take a look later. So the Scottish Sustainable Community Initiative, and you can see, I will just slide down here quickly so that you can see that how they started this idea. They basically used the area that was already there, the map that was already there, and from that map they planned what the new map would be, what the new city should have and could have, what would need, and they actually knocked down a few state house and a few houses to renew that whole area. So it's a very interesting project, that one. This is something you can practice, you can do with your students, and I will show you an example of something else you can do in a few minutes. And you can also look at the goals for the future from the United Nations and discuss with them before you even start your project. So there is a lot out there that you can explore and help your students understand so that they can use that for their own studies. So back to the presentation now. You can also use Digimap for schools for historical maps, compare how places have evolved over time. This sparks discussion about whether areas have become more or less sustainable over the decades. It's a powerful way to understand change in community, for example. So here I have an example that I created. I looked at Milton Keynes. I used the buffer tool in Digimap for schools, and I circulated the whole area of Milton Keynes in 1890s and how it grew. The big circle is Milton Keynes as it is today. So you can go to Digimap for schools and find a place, find a location, an area that you want to discuss with your students. Go to the map selector and then slide from Ordnance Survey to 1890s, for example. If I zoom out here, you'll see that York itself was much smaller than it is currently. So that is the area that you can now see York. So you can do that with so many places in the UK, and you can discuss with your students how this growth happened, what is impacted. For example, there is a place called Darrington, and Darrington was a very small parish until the Second World War. And with the Second World War, they created barracks very near Darrington, and thousands of soldiers moved to those barracks, and because of that, Darrington grew very quickly, too quickly for the infrastructure, and you can actually, look at that with your students. So then you can discuss with your students how cities grew and what impact it had to the environment. Was it a good growth? Does it promote all the elements that a sustainable community needs to have? Or was it a growth that impacted negatively? Those are things you can discuss with your students as well. So lastly, you can design your own sustainable community with your students. Like you can zoom in into a blank or rural area, for example, and ask your students to draw elements on that area. So you can start with a blank space, choose an open rural location, then the pupils add features using the drawing tools, and they will use the shapes to add buildings. They can use the line, the buffer tool to add roads and lakes and so on. So they can use markers for schools, shops, health centers, text box to explain design choices, and they can create paths. They can use the measurement tools to decide what the distance should be between buildings. And once they are done, you will come up with the map that I'm going to show you now. But first, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I zoom, not in a city, let me go out to a rural area, and I'll zoom in as much as I can. So what I have here is this green space. If you then take this area and start building your own community, you can use the drawing tools here and start by using the shape, adding polygons and creating houses, creating hospitals, creating schools, changing the colors, changing the shape, adding markers, adding lines, and making sure that everything is well planned and organized. So once you have gone through that, I'm not going to do this right now, but I will show you one that I have prepared earlier. So that's what you can do with Digimap for schools. You just really zoom in as much as you can in an area, and maybe an area with sand or grass or forest, and then you can build your community from there. So what I've done here, I've created a few houses. I put gardens in the houses, and I explained like a residential area, big gardens to provide more outdoor opportunities, and also lots of outdoor opportunities provided here, locally sourced products. So my shops, they are actually small shops with locally sourced products. I made sure I had a recycling center, a play park, a school, a bus station with electric buses, so that people don't have to commute by car. If they need to go quickly from one place to another, they can use the bus. So all these taken in consideration when your students are building their own community. For younger pupils, give them a checklist. For example, one park, one school, a shop, and so on. For older pupils, introduce constraints like budget, limits, population size, or environmental risks. These modifications help you tailor the activity to different skills and levels as well. Once the map is complete, students can save the maps in a designated folder in the saving areas in Digimap for schools. Then there is no need to print. You can, of course, print if you want. Everyone can open and look at the same time, and you can ask them to present their maps, justify their layout choices, discuss the choices of spaces that foster sustainable choices, and going even farther, choices that promote health and inclusion, for example. So I can very quickly show you what I mean here. So you can go to this area here, and then you can save your map. And you can give the name of the map and so on. And before your students save the map, you can create folders. So you can have different folders. Like here I have, for example, daily challenge, folder with 20 entries, or that is my own folder with 5 entries. So there are lots of folders here, and each class or each group can have their own folders, and the maps can go all into one folder, and they will be here forever. So if I go here, for example, and get my own folder and open, that is my replace drawings, and I will have my map that I saved before I took a picture and added to the presentation, for example. Or I can look at the place something else. So I can have students A, B, and C, or groups. If you are working in groups, for example, you can have them all in one folder here. Here are the references for the material we use today, so that you can use with your students. So it's basically Digimap for schools, and some of those documents that I showed you, so that you can have a discussion even before you go ahead and create your sustainable community with your students. So this is mostly to give your students an idea of what a sustainable community is, what it needs, and try to play around with the Digimap for schools to recreate it, to duplicate it, to invent their own. Most of the resources mentioned today, they are there in that page. Thank you for attending this training session with us, and I hope this inspired you to go ahead and create your own sustainable communities with your students.